Hello, everyone. How is everyone doing today? I guess it's that time of the week again for our weekly Facebook Live, where more or less I like to come on here and discuss, different topics of wholeness that create certain outcomes within our lives in the area of pretty much mindset, emotional, emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence, and just talking about topics that we all encounter in our own unique ways, how we act or react, and what we can do about creating change so we are living a life of more wholeness, more abundance, better states of being, and how we could connect to who we truly are. Because in my perspective, this is a vessel. This physical aspect of who we are is a vessel of that contains the soul of us, which is truly who we are. We are a soul in human form in this vessel we call a body. So, so yeah, so I wanted to come on and discuss. So, what is the topic of the day for today? Well, today I'd like to discuss. Before I even go there, I had been noticing there's been a lot of changes. There's been a lot of things, and it's funny because I've been noticing a lot of synchronicities in a few people that I follow on YouTube. People that I have that I have been following, that I have learned from. I guess you could say my online mentors that I really look up to, and just their messages that resonate. And I've been noticing various themes that that a lot of people have been talking about, and a lot of what people have been talking about has been behaviors and going through life in this time and space reality and how we're experiencing it, and as a result how we are reacting or acting in those moments of um, joy and moments of contrast, whatever that may be. And I think what many could relate to is that we're experiencing these events, and having these certain behaviors, um, in a way that we are continuously, um, we're feeling it more. We're experiencing things more. Um, in my knowing, there's a lot, that we're experiencing, we're evolving, we're changing. I think a lot of us, in this time space, especially us light workers that are here for a certain purpose, that have aligned with that, that are more that are attuned, or whether you're not. I think, regardless of who you are, where you are in your journey, more and more people are starting to awaken. More and more people are becoming more aware of various things within themselves and things that are going on externally. So it's, a lot of people in the spiritual space are talking about this great awakening, whatever. For me, working in the space of wholeness, mind health, emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence, and understanding, and really working in the space of the mind. Um, you know, a label's a label. It's how we communicate with each other, but whatever you want to call what we're experiencing right now, an ascension, an evolution, it really doesn't matter. It's a label at the end of the day. But the bottom line is we are all experiencing something. So the topic that I wanted to that aligns with this is talking about patterns of behaviors. So this is a really, I love this topic simply because we all have patterns, you know. And so what exactly is a pattern? Um, Basically, I guess the way I look at the human mind and how who we are, how we do things, how, you know, and I'm speaking, there's kind of two parts, um, when you're looking at the spiritual side, whether you believe in reincarnation, whether you believe in past lives, um, you know, there are so many different perspectives on the soul, you know, whether you believe in past lives and reincarnation and karma and karmic debt, regardless, you know, whether our soul has, each lifetime that we come back, our soul evolves, holds on to certain things, our soul has certain characteristics of who we are. And then every time we reincarnate, whereas on the more analytical and the more behavioral perspective of, you know, patterns and how we move forward and um, how we behave and how we react and how we experience life, it's patterns are either plain and simple, and I'm just going to keep things simple. They're patterns, which to me are programs based off our experience, based off our childhood, belief systems from our parents, generations after generations that have been passed on, are running programs. So these programs that we have, could either be conscious or unconscious. So we all have programs, we all have patterns, and these patterns are linked to certain behaviors. So in life, when we're experiencing, certain behaviors, and whether that is a pattern or it's just a behavior, um, you know, when you're looking at duality, because we do live in a life of duality, is this pattern of behavior serving us to our highest potential, or is it creating a detriment? Is it a detriment to our survival, to our state of beingness in the moment? So, because we're in a space of duality, you know, you're either on one side or the other. So let's look at that. Let's look at both aspects. Now, if we have a pattern of behavior that is to our highest potential and good, would we want to change it? Probably not. We want to keep those behaviors. We want to keep those patterns, of upliftment, of knowledge, of wisdom, of empowerment, whatever those behaviors are that pretty much show who we are. You know, it's how we expose ourselves, how we, shed our light and how people perceive us. There could be certain patterns of behaviors, and people that know us well, um, would know that, you're a certain way. If you were to ask somebody, hey, tell me something about me, and ask somebody the question, and you'll notice that, they'll name certain characteristics, and the chances are these characteristics that are of value that they see in a space of a higher vibrational space, you know could be linked to a pattern of behavior. That's how they perceive you. So there's so many levels, but let's just keep this very generalized. So let's talk about the patterns of behaviors that do not serve us in the now and even long term. Now, we could look at a pattern of behavior of, say, nail biting. That is conscious. For the most part, people are aware, or eventually do become aware of a certain pattern of behavior. And, for something like that, whether that is a detriment or something, good or bad, it doesn't, it's it's up to you. How do we create those changes, in those moments when executing a behavior, which I will share with you very, very, very shortly, some techniques. So going back to, you know, going back to the different just don't mind me. I'm actually going to be looking at because I know I have a tendency. I'm trying to. I would like to keep these videos a lot shorter because I know a lot of them have been a lot longer. So moving forward, yes, I receive downloads as I'm speaking here, but for the most part, I like to keep. So if I look away, that's exactly what I'm doing. But anyways, okay, mindsets and patterns of behavior. So in a state, when we're in a state of executing a behavior or a pattern of behavior that is not serving us in the moment, what can we do? What can we do in the moment? So these are a few things that I do, and I'm only sharing. I'm only anytime I'm going to share something with you. These are these are techniques that I'm going to share with you that have worked for me, or I have shared and have taught family, friends, clients, and it has worked for them. So I would never. I'm not a person that would share something that I've never actually utilized or have any results. But in this case, I'm going to share specifically with you some of the things that have worked for myself and others. So in a moment that you are executing a pattern of behavior and it's something that say that you are aware of or you're not aware of, but it's something that you know that you want to change. So how do I change? So essentially there's two parts to this. So the pattern which execute the behavior, and it's also linked to strategies, but that's a whole different ball game when you're looking at strategies, like unconscious strategies. But that's for another video. So patterns of behavior, execution, what can we do? In the moment that you're going through and you're executing that certain behavior, the thing that I do, which is probably the easiest form, is to step back and just breathe. Because when you're able to consciously just step back from that execution of that pattern of behavior, and that behavior, say if it's reactive and you want to state manage, this is when you would, the easiest form is breathe. So step back and core breathe. So for those of you, I think nowadays I like to think that most people understand when somebody says to core breathe, what exactly that means. You're more or less breathing from your diaphragm. You're breathing from your core area. Um, a normal reaction is that when we're hitting contrast, we're hitting fear, that flight, fright, fawn syndrome, when we're going through those experiences, we tend to shallow breathe from up here. But when you're in that moment and you're able to just step back, I like to close my eyes and just breathe from your nose and out through your mouth. Do that 3 times minimum, and that will shift that behavior that was stemmed from that pattern. So this is the most simplest in my opinion, the most simplest technique to do, to state manage when you're executing a certain behavior. Um, the other the other, whether you're in a situation or not, I mean, this would probably be even the first thing to do is remove yourself from the environment. Remove yourself from that environment. Step out of that energetic, morphogenic field, because for those of us that are empathic and can feel other people's emotions or can feel other people's pain, you know, we're all interconnected morphogenically in that energetic space. So removing yourself from that space, getting as far as away, then going into a space of, stepping back, breathing, state manage. If your heart's racing, that's another thing, which leads to the other state management technique, which is actually something I like to teach, something that I share with all my clients, all my friends, all my family. It's called learning state. So, what exactly is learning state? Learning state is a technique that we do. that I teach, and it's actually quite simple. And I tell my kids, for the most part, put yourself in this state. So I'll provide the benefits of it, but in the moment of executing a certain behavior, what putting yourself in this certain technique actually puts you into a parasympathetic state. So um, those are the immediate benefits. So, for example, if you're going through say a crisis type of situation in the moment, and you're in a really high stressful state, and you're executing a certain behavior that relates to that state, then putting yourself in this learning state will automatically, when done correctly, will literally lower your heart rate and put you into this parasympathetic state, which is also a light state of trance. So it's a beautiful technique. Maybe I'll do a video and teach how to actually do that. So something I'll share possibly another time. Or if anyone watches this and wants to learn, by all means comment and let me know, and I could definitely, that'll be a reminder for me to do a video. For the most part, usually when I do these videos, they're downloads, so it's not as if I pre-plan. When I get a download, I get that message that this is the topic that I'm meant to be talking about. Then I'll go and make my notes of the various things that I want to discuss within live. So by all means, if anyone, I always welcome any comments, and if there's anything specific that's related to um, state management, stress management, anything related to emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence, mindsets, that area, by all means, uh, leave a comment, and I'd be more than happy to do a video specific to that topic that you're interested in. So, learning state. So these are great in the now state management things that you could do when you're running a certain pattern that is not to your greatest potential. So, now, next step, let's move up to that next level. So, next level, what I like to say, so if I'm running a certain pattern of behavior and I know that it's not serving me, it may not be a bad thing, but it's not serving me to my highest potential. And I want to create that change permanently, not just in the moment, as the state management techniques I just shared, but something that is a little bit more concrete, something that will even maybe shift that behavior, shift that pattern, so that I could create, uh, you know, something more desirable, create a more desirable outcome. So, what I have found that has really helped me is in the moment that you're executing that certain pattern of behavior, is what I say to myself is basically what you want to do is become aware of what's going on in your mind. So, when you have a certain behavior and when you're executing a certain behavior, there's some kind of dialogue that is going on. Now, a pattern is a pattern, whether you're executing or it's you're being triggered or something's going on. It's a pattern of behavior that's linked a little bit deeper than just, you know, self-talk on a certain topic because of a certain experience. But I still, whether it's a pattern or whether it's just in the moment experience that's executing a behavior, what I find is that if you're able to connect to what it is that's going on in your mind, what is it that I'm saying to myself right now that's executing this behavior? And when you're able to bring that into your awareness, what you can do in the moment is ask yourself, you know, is this true? Because the chances are, if you're executing a negative emotion, you're being triggered or whatever that is, and you're just, whether it's a trigger or not, um, there's something that you're saying to yourself, whether it's about yourself or not. But in the moment, if it's something that you're saying about yourself, ask yourself the question: Is this true? Is this true? The other question, the other question I like to ask myself in that moment of that awareness that I am having a certain self-talk, you know, you know, link to, is this true? Ask yourself the question, is this true? Then you're going to want to ask yourself the question, or it may not be even linked to something that you're saying about yourself, but with this specific question, you're going to ask yourself, is is this serving me right now? Is this thought or whatever's going on, is this serving me right now? So I know easier said than done to go into. So, like I said, this is the next level. This is your next level that you're creating awareness. When you create awareness of certain behaviors, certain trends, certain strategies, certain patterns, regardless of what that is, the first step is always awareness. Awareness of what that is, what's creating this within me. When you ask yourself the questions that I just explained. Is this serving me? Is this serving me, or is this true? You're actually activating your RAS, which is your reticular activating system. That is part of the deepest core of your mind. It's almost like I like to say it's like your central system of the mind. So you're actually activating. Questions always activate the mind, always activate those deeper parts of our human mind. So when you're asking these questions in those moments of execution, you're actually activating that deeper part, of the RAS, which is within your unconscious mind. So that's a really great and powerful. Because in those moments that you're able to bring that into awareness. So, the last step that I like to say, if you're looking for a means that you have really a pattern that is really not serving you, and it's almost as if it's creating control and it's something that you really need to change. Now, of course, you could definitely seek out um, practitioners like myself and other beautiful souls out there that specialize in working with the psyche and mindsets and going a little bit deeper into those areas. Psychotherapists and psychologists, and or if like I said, holistic side, anyone who specializes in NLP and hypnotherapy would be able to help facilitate that journey of creating those patterns of change, those behaviors of change. Um, because everything of who we are is basically a behavior. How we show up is a behavior. How we act, how we do things, how we think, everything is rolled around that behavior. But for the do-it-yourselfers that want to create that change, and you know what, and it will always take a bit of time, but it is doable, and I'm prime example of that. so so for example, so the next step, so how do we create change? So in the most simplistic terms, if you're doing this yourself, I would say, you, when you're executing a certain behavior, however if you're able to in that moment not act and reverse engineer how you would normally behave, do the opposite. So over time, of you running a certain behavior or a certain strategy, a certain pattern of behavior, if you're able to, in that moment, before you execute that behavior, do the opposite of what you normally would do. So, that over time, if you do it enough, that will actually start creating new neural pathways that eventually will overwrite that old behavior and that old pattern, especially when you're hitting those times of contrast. You'll have more options in choosing how you're going to behave. And that's the beauty with, working with hypnotherapy and NLP and various techniques like this, or even just doing the work yourself. By creating those new neural pathways, you're creating more options and more possibilities for yourself in those times of midst of contrast, and you need to state manage. You won't be reverting back to a certain behavior, and that's essentially what you want to create. You want to create options and possibilities. So doing the complete opposite, just as you're about to execute. So, if normally your go to behavior when you're hitting contrast is, say, for example, we'll use me as an example, what used to be my go to behavior. And not to say at times I still go to that behavior because it is valid, but you don't want to be living in that state for too long, because the only person you're really harming is yourself. So, in those moments, what you want to do is state manage, and you want to just create that change, do the opposite. So, for example, if your go to is anger, like mine is, you know, maybe when you're just about to get into that state, start laughing. Do something completely opposite and continue to do that, because eventually that will create that unconscious change. Um, so I'll give you another example. So I'll give you an example for myself. And now I will tell you this: I haven't completely rewrote this aspect, but the good thing is that I've been aware of it, and it's been something that I've been working on. And doing these YouTube videos actually have been helping me with this certain pattern. So I have a tendency to loop when I tell stories, or if I'm communicating something. So, and you probably noticed this watching this video, whether you're watching this now, this is actually going to be something. Uh, this is something that I normally do. So when I loop, so what I'll do is that I'll be sharing a piece of information, or I'll be sharing a story and getting to that pinnacle point, and then I'll revert. I'll loop around and start talking about something else. Or I will deter and add something in conjunction to what I'm saying. So this is a pattern. Um, However, when I'm aware of it, sometimes what I'll do is like I'll say to the person I'm speaking to, wait, just before I get to that point, I want to add this in. Because in that moment of me running that pattern of me looping and not getting to the point, that pinnacle point, I'll stop myself and I'll realize, oh, okay, I literally just looped. Stop myself and be like, okay, I want to add this point because it's relevant to what I'm saying. Or what I'll do is that I'll pause. So for the most part, I'll just pause and I'll just kind of let go of what it was that I was saying and put myself back to the main point and finish that point. So sometimes I'm more successful than others, other times not so much, but hey, it is what it is. So that's something that, to give you an example of one of the patterns that I have a tendency of doing. So, anyways, so I think this is pretty much it. um, Patterns of behaviors, again, surface when you want to state manage, when you're in a trigger point and you're executing that certain pattern of behavior, take yourself out of that morphogenic field, step out of that environment, that energetic field, step out, you know, stay, breathe, put yourself into a breathing state, in through your nose, out through your mouth, and do it 3 times. That'll state manage you very quickly from that behavior. Then on top of that, like I mentioned, doing a learning state for those of you that are in the space will who know. But like I said, I will do another video on a how to do learning state. It's a phenomenal technique. I will share more because there's actually more value in understanding and learning how to do that, because it's, yes, it puts you in a parasympathetic state, but there's other values to this technique as well, which I will share in my upcoming video. So, and then so next level, like I said, if you're able to come into awareness of what that state is, what that pattern is, and ask yourself the question: is this true? And is this serving me right now? Then from that point, the next level of starting to rewire and reprogram. When you're about to execute, do the opposite. So if you're able to catch yourself, do the opposite. So if your normal behavior for a certain pattern that you're running is anger, do the opposite. Start laughing. Start laughing. People might think you're a little crazy, but that's okay. So, and yeah, so try it out. If you do try any of these out, would love to hear what your thoughts are. But I think that is it. Well, see, so much for staying, trying to make this a shorter video, but that's all right. I'll get there. Still learning the ropes of social media and doing videos and sharing. So, anyways, thank you very much. For those of you who watch this, sending you, if you have any questions, you have my contact information. Sending you all tons of love and light. Have a wonderful day.